He huffed out a breath and peeled his long fingers off her breast, reminding herself this was exactly why she'd taken her grandmother Flossie's words to heart after her grandfather had passed away last month. She'd heard stories about couples like her grandparents who had been together for more than 50 years, dying within weeks of each other, and she'd been petrified that she'd lose her grandmother too. As they'd driven back to the Long Island assisted living facility where her grandparents had lived for the past several years, Aurelia had begged her grandmother to move back to Sweetwater and let her care for her. But her bright-eyed grandmother, the woman who had taught her to tie her shoes and speak her mind, the woman who had owned a bookstore in Sweetwater for 40-plus years and instilled a love of all things literary in Aurelia, had said, "This isn't the end of my story, Bubala. Your grandfather and I could fill a library with books about our love. We had our happily ever after, and we shared a beautiful, spectacular life. But as your grandpa would say, now it's time to start a new adventure. My next chapter." Ben murmured, holding Aurelia tighter and pressing his all-too-tempting arousal harder against her jeans, tearing her from the pages of her past and thrusting her into the going-nowhere scribblings of the present. She tried to pry his fingers off her again and said, "Time to wake up, Benny boy." He groaned, tightening his hold. "Ben!" she snapped, irritated with herself for falling into her old ways so easily. She'd moved into her apartment above the bookstore 2 weeks ago in an effort to be in before Ben's sister Bridget's wedding, which had taken place 2 days ago. That was her deadline for her fresh start, her own new chapter. I sure screwed that up. Ben startled awake and peered over her shoulder. "Sorry, Rels, I didn't mean to grab your boob again." "Right, you didn't mean to. Thanks for the reminder." "Whatever." She sat up, and he hauled her back against his chest, making her laugh to spite herself. "I love waking up with my best bud by my side," he said, "even if she is cranky in the morning." "I'm not cranky." She eyed the bottle of tequila on the table and sighed inwardly. She knew better than to drink with Ben. They laughed and drank, and always crashing together. Never in the way she wanted, despite the fact that he'd bought her a toothbrush for his house months ago. She wondered how he explained that to his one-night stands. She knew he had them, but in truth, she had no idea if they came home with him or if they always did the deed elsewhere. Her stomach sank. It was time for this to end once and for all. "We can't drink tequila anymore," she said adamantly. "Okay, next time we'll get Jack and Coke." "Maybe we need to stop drinking when we watch movies," she said half-heartedly, because she loved their comfy, fun evenings. But being friend-zoned with Ben made her feel pathetic. So she said, "I do have a new apartment to inhabit." "For the record, as glad as I am that you found such a great investment, I hate that you're not right around the corner anymore. And you did it all so fast, Rels. One day you're driving Flossie home, and the next you announce that you're moving to Harmony Pointe." She'd driven through Harmony Pointe on her way back from taking her grandmother home after her grandfather's funeral, and when she'd stopped at a red light, she'd seen a for sale sign on the door of the corner bookstore, which was called Chapter 1. It had felt like a neon sign screaming at her to move on with her life, and she'd made an offer that day. "Well, apparently all it takes is one call and I'm right back in your living room," she said, trying not to make too much of his comment. "Because that's what friends do. They keep each other company." Friends, the greatest buzzkill of all. He began kneading her shoulders. He had the biggest, strongest hands. Magic hands. She'd fantasized about them slipping beneath her clothing, caressing, groping, and teasing until she was wet and wanting. "See, you need this in the mornings to take the edge off," he said in a low voice, snapping her out of her fantasy. She turned her head to see his face.